Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome you to week 5. We have a lot to go over since we're not meeting this week. So I ask for patience because I may be bouncing around from idea to idea. My goal is to provide you with 2 recordings to kind of help guide you as you start working on task 3. From our previous conversations, task 3 has been the area that our former students scored the lowest in. Most of our students, I think all of our students, have passed the EdTPA, but if there was one of the 3 tasks that they struggled with the most, it was typically assessment, it was task 3, assessment. But I think based on our knowledge now and the work that you did with Dr. Bray, I think it's really going to benefit you as you look at what's required for task 3. I hope you get excited about doing task 3 because I think this is where you get to share the learning that's taking place not only among your class but also among specific students, because as you know, you have 3 focus students that you're going to be providing evidence about. And so what we're going to do in this first video is I'm basically going to show you everything that's required of you, and then in the second video I'm going to show you some actual examples. So kind of help guide your thoughts and your work as you're getting or completing task 3. So let's go through some of these documents together. The first one we're going to look at is your syllabus. We are at week 5, so as you know, we're getting close to the end. Look at the due date, December 1st for this week and next week, because next week is Thanksgiving. And so I know that's a big distraction, and I want you to focus on the time with your family. So I've extended the time for you to submit everything related to task 3. So I hope that benefits you, but please don't put it off to the end. Do a little bit at a time. Do a little bit each day. And I think if you do that, it won't be as overwhelming as it can be. But this week, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at some student work examples. We're going to look at evidence of feedback, and these are things that you're going to submit to me on December 1st. And then we're also going to look at the commentary. The other thing that you have to do for task 3 is you're going to be submitting some video clips of each of the focus students. So you can submit a 5-minute video clip of each focus student. So we're going to talk about video clips and the work you're going to be doing to show that assessment is taking place. And then finally, you're also going to provide feedback evidence. What is feedback evidence? That is you showing that you're providing feedback to your students in the form of an assessment. So I'll show you some examples of that as well. So on December 1st, you're going to submit some video clips. You're also going to submit some student work samples, and then you're also going to submit task 3 commentary. And so I'll hopefully make this very clear for you. If not, as always, just send me emails, call me, set up an appointment so we can meet on campus, and I'll work you through or help walk you through anything that may be confusing. Let's look at eCourseware. Let's see. Here we go. So if you look at eCourseware, notice the due date. This week you're submitting task 2 instruction commentary. And then the final things that you'll be submitting, notice there's 4 different columns. You have task 3 part A, student work samples. Okay, and this is going to be written evidence. And so I'll share that with you. I'll also share with you evidence of feedback, which is task 3 part B. Task 3 part C is your assessment commentary. And then finally, task 3 part D is your evaluation criteria. And essentially that's going to be your rubric that you use in your assessment. Now, when you are submitting for the real EdTPA, you have 3 lesson plans that you can pull from. What I'm going to have you do for the practice is just focus on submitting 1. And so I'll show you what that looks like in the second video. So just as a reminder, everything is due on December 1st. And so we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Let's look at some materials. As always, there's a lot of things that you have to work with. So if we were to go through different parts of eCourseware, I just want to make you aware of a few things. Let's see. Don't forget that, got to make sure I'm going to the right place here. Here it is. Okay, so if you go to this folder, always remember that you have the rubric progressions. And so the rubric progressions is going to help you understand how to get a 3, how to get a 4, how to get a 5, what the differences are between those numbers. So for anything that you're submitting, always look at this document. This document looks like this. And so for example, assessment rubric 11, analysis of student learning. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I think because we've done it before, but just as a reminder, okay, if you want to get a 3 on rubric 11, okay, evidence that demonstrates performance at level 3, evidence that demonstrates performance below a 3, what distinguishes a level 2 from a 3, from a 1 from a 2, and then if you want to get an above 3, and this is where I really want you to focus your time, pay attention to how to get a 4, pay attention to how to get a 5, because as we've spoken before, that's what we're aiming for. The other thing to pay attention to is your handbook. And so let's go through the handbook real quick just to pay. So let's take a look at the handbook and pay attention to what your responsibilities are. Okay, so what do I need to do? Select 2 to 3 assessments from the learning segment. The assessment should reflect the work of individuals, not groups. Even if the psychomotor activity is a group activity, the assessment should give you both you and the students a sense of how well they are progressing toward developing the competencies targeted in the learning segment. So your videos will have the entire group, but you need to be able to see evidence of your focus students. Define and submit the evaluation criteria. Analyze the performance of your whole class. Submit work samples for each focus student. The video work sample for each student, which is no more than 5 minutes. Written evidence of how you rated each focus student. And again, these are things that I'm going to show you examples of in the second video. You can also submit up to 2 additional work samples of related knowledge and skills in the cognitive domain and or affective domain for each focus student. Attach this to the written evidence for the psychomotor activity and submit as one file for each focus student. And again, I'll show you an example of that here in a little bit. You also want to verify that each video clip meets the following requirements. Now, instead of showing you the handbook, make sure you pay attention to your checklist, which is provided on eCourseware. So if you go to eCourseware and go down to the video checklist, which is located here, it'll give you these 2 documents that you can look at in your own time. But look what's on the checklist. Include footage of 2 to 3 chosen assessments that measure your students' developing competencies in the psychomotor domain and related knowledge, skills, or dispositions in at least one other domain, and include all 3 focus students. So that should be included in your group video. Each of you have submitted to me a video clip that was either 2 10-minute clips or a 20-minute clip. So included in that should be this criteria. Show the work of individual students rather than the entire group. And so again, that's how you're going to get your video evidence for your focus students. Consist of video clips per focus student that last no longer than 5 minutes for each student. 3 separately labeled video clips in one file. Describe how any viewer of the video clip can recognize each specific focus student. And so what you're going to do is you're going to describe each focus student, and that'll happen in your commentary. So you'll see an example of that. Clearly show relevant aspects of each focus student's performance that was recorded during activity with the whole class. Show clear direct evidence and has clear audio. So it's very important that your audio is working properly. If it's not, you can provide a transcription. In other words, you can type out what the student was saying in the parts that are inaudible, but you have to make sure that you identify the time mark so that they understand where that is located. Show only consented students. Hopefully you were able to get consent forms for all of your students. If you didn't, you are allowed to blot out their face, but you cannot show the unconsented students in the video, so it does make it challenging if you have some of those. Avoid all indications that this is a school in Tennessee. That's usually not a problem, and it's not something they're highly concerned about, but if you can avoid it, it is beneficial. And then you can also use an additional 5-minute video labeled language use, where you show student language use if assessed in this manner, whether individually or in a group. So that is your video checklist. The other thing that I want to show you is the written assessment example. Now, this is also included on eCourseware. Okay, this is a great example of how to use assessment in physical education. I know Dr. Bray shared a lot of great examples with you for assessment, but this is just another one that you could use. Now notice what it says. And this is written as if it's written to a student. Using your notebooks, take a few minutes to tell me about how you played today, and make sure to mention the following. Team communication. What did you say or how did you communicate to your teammates that helped the team? Movement. How did you move around during the game to allow your team to play well? Sportsmanship. What did you try to do to play the game with good character? And so here's their task. Write a paragraph with at least 5 complete sentences using 5 or more vocabulary words to answer the questions above. You may submit a video or audio tape of an oral description answering the questions above. Submit using a parent email. Due Sunday by 5 p.m. Now look at the rubric. This is important. You can't just make a scale 1 through 5 that doesn't have a written description of what each number represents. So, needs improvement, 1 point. So notice this is a 3-point activity. Does not contain 5 complete sentences, didn't follow the rules. Uses 4 or less vocabulary words, so it didn't really incorporate the words, the academic language that was being used during that unit. Student does not describe within their gameplay the following concepts: team communication, movement, or sportsmanship. So in other words, they completely avoided the task and what it was they were supposed to talk about. So how do you get a 2? Contains at least 5 complete sentences, at least 5 vocabulary words, and notice that was the description. That was what they were aiming for. Student satisfactorily describes how he or she did well during gameplay in at least 2 of the following concepts. Then notice to get a 3, they went above and beyond. 6 complete sentences, 6 words, explained all 3 concepts well. And so this is a great way for you to show written assessments, to show student work, but then you can also provide feedback. And so I'm going to show that to you in video 2, some examples of what the assessments can look like. So that kind of helps us understand the documents for task 3. The next video will share with you some examples to help you better understand what it is you're going to be submitting.